Good morning and welcome to UU Wellesley Hills. Please, I would ask you if you would stand as you are willing and able and join in singing our first hymn this morning, which is number 6 in the Grey hymnal, Just as Long as I Have Breath, number 6. So welcome to UU Wellesley Hills. My name is Terry Dixon. I use he, him pronouns, and as ever, I am deeply honored and grateful to be your intern minister. I've never been prouder in my life. Thank you. This is a Unitarian Universalist congregation, and we are a welcoming and affirming congregation. And that means no matter your age or your race or your ethnicity or your gender identity or whom you love or how you dress or your beliefs or how you move around in the world, wherever you are on your own personal journey, you are very welcome here. And we welcome you whether you are joining us here this morning in the sanctuary or online through the webcam, or if you choose to tune in later to the recording. Because, as we say here at Wellesley Hills, welcome to UU Wellesley Hills, where you are welcomed and embraced with love. And I would just ask if there's anybody joining us here for the first time today. You can put up your hand, we don't. It's okay, nobody's being embarrassed, but if you are here for the first time, a special welcome, and please join us after the service for tea, coffee, refreshments across in the hall. Now, I just ask you if you would put your phones and any digital devices on their quietest setting so they don't disturb us during the service. But while we don't want to be disturbed by any beeps and buzzes of that sort, we do very much welcome anyone's human noises of whatever kind, whether that's laughing or crying or gurgling or particularly singing. So we'd ask you in particular to sing out loud during the hymns. And I want to also welcome and introduce two guests today. Max Holman, who is with us playing his beautiful music, is our guest musician today and leading the choir. He's just waving at the back. And then I also want to introduce you to my friend and colleague, Eli Hardwig. Eli is going to be our guest minister today. Eli is like myself, in our final year at the MDiv program at Harvard Divinity School. And his current work focuses on religion in the novels of George Eliot. He's also a field educator. The piece and share that with each other. First of all, let's share it, those in the sanctuary, if you would wave at our friends on the webcam and pass the piece that way to them. And then let us pass the piece amongst ourselves here in the sanctuary. You're not the only new one, I think. Of course I did. Thank you, and peace to you all. I had just a few announcements today. First of all, as you know, Mother's Day and then Father's Day is coming in the next couple of months. But today is Non-Binary Parents' Day. So I'd like to give a shout out to anyone who identifies as non-binary, and especially for non-binary parents. Happy Non-Binary Parents' Day. And of course, Monday is Patriots' Day, Marathon Day, and as you know, the runners will be coming right past the church here. And the Mug Hug team will be out on the sidewalk to cheer the runners on as they go by, creating personalized mugs and hats and bags as mementos. And they'll also be there furthering the mission of Mug Hug, which is to brew meaningful connections between people. So please come and join Mug Hug tomorrow for the marathon. Also, I just wanted to give people an alert. Sadly, Kathy had her device hacked yesterday, and I think some of you may have received emails from her. They're obviously a scam, it's a spoof. Do not open them, but just wanted to give you a heads up about that in case you get such an email. And then last, but absolutely not least, is the rummage sale, which I think everybody knows is next Saturday, April 25th, from 9 to 12. If you haven't ever been, I went for the first time last year, and I was blown away by the way Wellesley Hills does rummage. I mean, I got this jacket for... and it cost me $10. But most importantly, today is Sorting Sunday. And so we would really ask you, if you can possibly do it, to stay after the service today to help with the sorting. There's a lot of stuff to sort, as there always is. So please, if you can do that, be very appreciative. There will be lunch served after the service, as a way of sort of encouraging you to stay and do some sorting. And we need volunteers throughout the week, because there's always work to be done throughout the week. And in particular, there'll be need for people on Saturday during the sale itself, and then most importantly, afterwards, to help with the clear up. So please, if you can help out in any way this week, including today, we'd be most grateful. So now, as we deepen into worship, I'd like to invite Reed to come up to light our chalice. The flaming chalice is not only a shining symbol of our Unitarian Universalist commitment to religious pluralism and humanitarian principles, but is also a much-needed light shining out into our world. We light it on the altar every Sunday and any time we gather as a community. And if you're watching from home and have a chalice on hand, you may want to light yours now. Thanks, Reed. And the words for our chalice lighting are spoken in unison, and you'll find the words printed in your order of service or appearing on the screen. So please join me in saying them together. We light this chalice to illuminate our faithful way forward as an inspirational community of hope. Together, we seek spiritual growth. We strive for just and responsible action. We dedicate ourselves to leading lives of compassion and purpose. And now is the time in our service for the story for all ages. And as I say every week, it is all ages. Anybody and everybody is welcome to come up here and sit on the chancel steps while I tell our story. And the story today is The Little Climber by Danielle Sarli. Yes, come on, don't be shy. I have props, I always have props. Even a proper chalk bag. Okay. And actually, if I could ask someone to just hold the mic for me. Thank you. Okay, this is our story today. The Little Climber. Mac was anything but ordinary. Yeah, anything but ordinary. She climbed up trees. She climbed up street signs. And she climbed on rooftops. I'm on top of the world, Mac shouted happily. Come down from there, Mac, her father called. But why? She asked. It's not safe, said her father. Mac sighed, but she did what she was told and jumped to the ground. Thump. And that was that. At school, Mac enjoyed playing with her friends. She climbed on desks, she climbed on lockers, and she climbed on the basketball hoops. I'm on top of the world, she yelled. Come down here this instant, her teacher scolded. Why come down when I can go up? Mac smirked. It's not safe, Mac, explained her teacher. Why won't anyone let me play? Mac thought. But she did what she was told, and she jumped to the ground again. Thump. That was that. One day, Mac's PE teacher, Miss Hill, set up an obstacle course. Mac climbed up the ropes, she climbed up the ladders, she climbed on the walls. I'm on top of the world, she shouted. Yes, you are, exclaimed Miss Hill. And to Mac's surprise, Miss Hill joined her on the top of the wall. You know, it's great that you're so strong, Mac, but climbing on school lockers and basketball hoops is, kind of dangerous. Rock climbers use ropes and harnesses and helmets for safety. Would you like to learn? Miss Hill asked. Mac nodded. She was excited. The next day, Miss Hill took Mac and her father outdoors to climb. Up, up, up she went. Higher and higher she climbed. I'm on top of the world, she shouted. Oh, but do I have to come down? She asked sadly. You're good just the way you are. Keep climbing, Mac, her father cheered. So she climbed and she climbed. And she climbed. And then, all of a sudden, her foot slipped. I'm scared, she shouted. You're safe, Mac. I've got you, she heard Miss Hill calmly say. And with that, Mac trusted Miss Hill as she slipped off the rock. Mac looked up. Phew! Miss Hill was right. The rope caught her. Yippee! Mac cheered. Maybe climbing with gear is safer, after all, she realized. And as nightfall came, Mac reached the top of the cliff, and she looked out at the view. She did feel strong and happy and proud. I did it, she whispered. I'm finally on top of the world. And then, without being told by anyone, Mac decided to come down. Ready to lower, she called. And at last, Mac happily jumped to the ground. Thump. And that was that. Okay, well, thank you all, everybody, for listening to the story. And there'll be more climbing later, I think, right? Maybe up the wall here or something. We'll see.
No props for me today. The Social Action Council has chosen the theme of international outreach for our April collections. This week's collection for Flaming Chalice International will support the efforts of Unitarian Church members in Burundi, Africa, to affirm the worth and dignity of a very vulnerable group of young women. Our Burundian partners in faith are initiating a project to empower a group of teen mothers by providing them with the assistance they need to develop sustainable sources of income and achieve economic independence. They will learn practical skills, financial literacy, and receive vocational training and small business startups support. The fundraising goal is $2,400 to support 3 groups of 15 young mothers. The overall goal is to lay the foundation for long-term resilience in the face of economic and sexual exploitation. You can make your donation electronically or place it in the plate when it is passed. If you want to make an online payment, visit the Give page on our new website. Once there, be sure that plate collection is selected from the options. If you write a check, please remember to put FCI on the memo line. UU Wellesley Hills has maintained a connection with the Burundian Unitarians since I visited there with our minister in 2014. I have been serving as the treasurer for Flaming Chalice International USA since it was incorporated in 2022. FCI Executive Director, Reverend Mubutsa Najijimani Burundi, is very appreciative of our ongoing financial support, which makes a tremendous difference in his home country, one of the poorest in the world.
And we open our circle of care and concern today, this opportunity and moment to pause and to pray, or reflect, or meditate. We open with these words by Reverend Dr. Tamara Laback. Holy One, who has given us the breath of life, today we remember to breathe deeply, to rest, to take in, to pause before we act, and then to take in another deep breath, poised on the edge, and risk jumping in, risk taking action, risk speaking up, risk using the gifts that we have been given, so at the end of our life we can say with absolute clarity that no part of our existence was wasted in fear of failure or fear of success. Hold us, Holy One. Prepare us the way to begin to offer the gift of our awkward presence, full of life and light today. We lift up this prayer into this open space. Amen, and blessed be. And now I would invite you into a period of silence to reflect on these words in your hearts. And if you wish, I would invite you to place your feet on the floor. Put down anything you may be holding in your hands, and then simply allow your heart space to open as you breathe into this moment of peace. And now I'd like to invite all who wish to come forward and light a candle of intention. And if you're comfortable, please tell us what or who the candle is for. And we will hold that intention in our hearts. And those in the online pews, if you'd like to type your joys and sorrows into the comment section, we will hold those in our hearts as well. So I invite you to come down the center aisle, light a candle, say a few words, and then return by the side aisle. Let us begin.
Reed and I would like to light a candle in support of all the marathon runners that are coming through our town tomorrow and all the great positive spirit that they represent and plus all the causes that they raise money for. And so we can all support and contribute to them in any way that we like. I regret I will not be running this year because I forgot to train and it's tomorrow morning. Thank you. Yeah.
It is with great joy that I share the news that the minister of our partner church, Martin, and his wife, Lilo, had their first child, a baby boy, on April 15th. His name is Barnabas. We think that's the pronunciation. And it turns out that Mark Roebel's middle name is Barnabas. So how perfect. I have pictures. I feel like a proud aunt.
I have two candles. One is a concern for Marge Schellenberg, who had a fall and is recovering, and I can update you on her condition at some point. And the other is a joy to welcome Laura and John Colburn, who are visiting back as they have rejoined the New England population, and they're living in Scituate now.
Well, that's us. Good morning, John. We are members here from the day we moved to Wellesley in 1996. Oh, sorry. I'm John, Laura, and we are so glad to be back in New England, and we're living in Scituate, 10-minute drive from our daughter Adrian and her 3 kids and her husband. And we were here from 96 to 2011. And then we figured we better come back. So we did. Thank you.
And if anyone has a need for a stand-up desk, speak to me afterwards.
You want a desk? It's free.
Keep in mind.
Thank you. Hi, I light this candle for a dear friend that I heard from yesterday that her husband just had passed away. So I send my blessings and love to the family and hope they have a safe journey.
This is for everyone who's feeling stressed, overworked, and overwhelmed, especially during this week of Rummage. And good luck that it's a great sale.
I light this candle in memory of a dear friend who has just died, and in celebration of the birth of a grandnephew. It is truly the circle of life.
So we honor all these intentions in the community. And alongside those, we know there are some joys or concerns that are perhaps too personal, too deep to be spoken out loud. So I light this candle for them. And also for those people who sadly do not have a community like this in which to share their joys and concerns. So may this candle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse. And may its radiance shine out far beyond these walls and light up the very dark corners of our world. And now, if you would please join me and rise in body and spirit, if you wish, and join in singing hymn number 85 in the grey hymnal, Although This Life is But a Wraith, number 85 in the grey hymnal. Our reading this morning is Fergus Falling by Galway Kinnell, the former Poet Laureate of Vermont. He climbed to the top of one of those million white pines set out against the emptying pastures of the 50s. Some program to enrich the rich and rebuke the forefathers, who cleared it all at once with ox and axe. Climbed to the top, probably to get out of the shadow, not of those forefathers, but of this father, and saw for the first time down in its valley Bruce Pond, giving off its little steam in the afternoon. Pond where Clarence Ackley came on Sunday mornings to cut down the cedars round the shore. I'd sometimes hear the slow pondies of his work. He's gone. Where Milton Norway came up behind me when I was fishing and stood a while before I knew he was there. He's the one who put the cedar shingles on the house. Some have curled or split. A few have blown off. He's gone. Where Gus Newland logged in the cold snap of 58, the only man willing to go into those woods that never got warmer than 10 below. He's gone. Pond, where 2 wards of the state wandered on Halloween. The National Guard searched for them in November, in vain. The next fall, a hunter found their skeletons huddled together, in vain. They're gone. Pond, where an old fisherman in a rowboat sits, drowning hooked worms. When he goes, he's replaced and is never gone. And when Fergus saw the pond for the first time in the clear evening, saw its oldness down there, in its old place in the valley, he became heavier suddenly in his bones, the way fledglings do just before they fly. And the soft pine cracked. I would not have heard his cry if my electric saw had been working, its carbide teeth speeding through the bland spruce of our time, or burning black arcs in some scavenged hemlock plank, like dark circles under eyes, when the brain thinks too close to the skin. But I was sawing by hand, and I heard that cry, as though he were attacked. We ran out. When we bent over him, he said, "Galway, Inez, I saw a pond." His face went grey. His eyes fluttered close, a frightening moment. Yes, a pond that lets off its mist on clear afternoons of August, in that valley to which many have come for their reasons, from which many have gone, a few for their reasons, most not, where even now an old fisherman only the pine tops can see, sits in the dry grey wood of his rowboat, waiting for pickerel.
A few weeks ago, one of my friends asked me, "What's the biggest risk you've taken recently?" And because I was startled by the question, I'd like to ask it to you, too. Take a moment to think about it. What's the biggest risk you've taken recently? If you're like me, you might have found it hard to think of something. I could think of small ways that I'd stepped out of my comfort zone, jobs I'd applied for, volunteering I'd done, old friends I'd reached out to, but nothing that actually felt risky. Nothing, certainly, that involved any physical danger. And that struck me as odd because at work, I put people in physical danger all the time. I don't mean when I work at a church, to be clear. You have nothing to worry about. But in my other job, I work at a rock climbing gym. And there I see kids take risks every day. Whether leaping for a handhold that's a bit out of reach, or strapping themselves into a harness for the first time, or climbing dozens of feet in the air, trusting in the rope, the gear, and me as their belayer to catch them if they fall. And there are more unusual dangers, too. The first time I belayed a kid up a 50-foot wall, I asked him if he enjoyed doing the 50-foot climbs, and he let out a long, gusty sigh. "Yeah," he said, "but sometimes they make me go into baby mode, where I can't talk and I have to act like a baby, and that's not as fun." So he did the climb, and he did great. And when I lowered him back to the ground, all the other kids in his class clamored around and asked, Leo, did you go into baby mode this time?" And he looked at them solemnly and said, "Goo goo gaga." I say all of this to say that I know what risk-taking looks like for these kids. The tremulous first step, the shaky arms and legs, the refusal to look down, the triumph. And so when Terry asked me to speak here today, I wanted to take the chance to reflect on the time I've spent with these kids, to figure out what it is that they know that I don't, what they can see from the top of those walls while I stay down on the ground. I turned first to poetry, as I often do. The poem you just heard Terry read, Fergus Falling, is the first poem in a collection titled Mortal Acts, Mortal Words, a collection I treasured when I was 18 and first discovering that it was possible for good things to end. Galway Kinnell, who was the poet laureate of Vermont for years, knew some things about cold winters and empty beds and long falls. Fergus Falling is a poem about falling of a particularly literal kind. It describes Galway's son Fergus's decision to climb to the top of one of those million white pines set out across the emptying pastures, and there Fergus sees a pond, Bruce Pond, giving off its little steam in the afternoon, whose appearance in the poem turns the poet almost magnetically, like a migratory bird himself, to dwell on his own memories. Pond where Clarence Ackley came on Sunday mornings to cut down the cedars around the shore I'd sometimes hear the slow spondees of his work. He's gone. Where Milton Norway came up behind me while I was fishing and stood a while before I knew he was there. He's the one who put the cedar shingles on the house. Some have curled or split, a few have blown off. He's gone. Where Gus Newland logged in the cold snap of '58, the only man willing to go into those woods that never got warmer than 10 below, he's gone. And when Fergus saw the pond for the first time, Galway writes, in the clear evening, saw its oldness down there, in its old place in the valley, he became heavier suddenly. In his bones, the way fledglings do just before they fly, and the soft pine cracked. And then a devastating pause. An ellipsis in the printed version of this poem, 3 dots like ponds themselves, deep and mysterious and terrible. We do find out eventually that Fergus survives his fall. When his parents rush to his side, his first words are, "Galway, Inez, I saw a pond." And in fact, decades later, Fergus wrote in answer to a journalist's query, "I'm so glad I was there in those moments with Galway. Yes, even falling out of a tree, the fear and pain has been forgotten." But stay with me in this moment, before all that. Fergus sees the pond for the first time, and he becomes heavier suddenly in his bones, the way fledglings do before they fly, and the soft pine cracks. When I first read this poem, I thought Galway was imagining a bird poised for first flight, launching itself triumphantly out of the nest. But it turns out that's not how fledging works. In fact, I feel I can hear the birders among you already shaking your heads in disappointments. Yes, good. I'm pretty sure you need at least a few to be eligible as a Unitarian Universalist congregation. But for the rest of us, Galway writes here of fledglings, not nestlings. Birds who can't yet fly, but have left the nest and must survive days or weeks down here. And that's why they get heavier, not to facilitate flight, but to help them live out the days on the ground, where feedings are erratic and predators lurk nearby. It seems to me that there is some connection between this and Fergus catching sight of the pond that for his father is so tied to mortality and absence. Clarence Ackley, Milton Norway, Gus Newley, all gone now. It's a kind of discovery at the height of Fergus's triumph of endings, limitation, failure, fallenness, and falling. But what arrests me about this poem is that this discovery isn't mourned, but celebrated as an accomplishment. Galway, Inez, I saw a pond. Fergus has fallen. His bones have grown heavy. He has discovered his own fragility and become terrifyingly vulnerable. But in so doing, the poem suggests, he has also discovered his wings, and soon he may be able to use them. It reminds me of what the UU theologian Sharon Welch wrote in her book, A Feminist Ethic of Risk. Welch notes how easy it is for middle-class people to fall into what she calls cultured despair, a hopelessness born out of our awareness of the magnitude of social problems, wedded to a sense of personal security that allows us to withdraw from the fight if we so choose. I know I'm susceptible to this. When the good life is present or within reach, Welch writes, it is tempting to despair of it ever being in reach for others and resort merely to enjoying it for oneself and one's family. We end up holding the rope at the bottom while other people climb. But Welch suggests that we learn from oppressed communities who for generations have continued to persist and act despite the inability to claim a similar level of security. For her, it is precisely the relinquishment of security and the frank acknowledgement of risk, the welcoming into our lives of failure, wrack, and uncertainty, together with the cultivation of a community that can pick us up when we fall, that makes it possible to throw ourselves out over the abyss again and again in pursuit of justice. As you heard sung earlier, give me the heart to fight and lose. Or as you also heard sung, be like the bird that pausing in her flight, a while on boughs too slight, feels them give way beneath her, and sings and sings and sings, knowing she has wings. I like to think that Fergus learned something similar at the top of that tree, or perhaps more accurately, at the bottom, fallen, but with beloved faces leaning over him. There's something I didn't tell you about the conversation where my friend asked me about the biggest risk I'd taken recently. Even in divinity school, people don't typically ask questions like that unprompted. No, this was part of a conversation in which I asked my friends to help me figure out why it's so difficult for me to join a church. Even as a seminarian, my instinct when I come to church is still to sit in the way back, to slip out after the benediction, even sometimes to rotate churches to ensure no one becomes too familiar with my face and asks me questions about my parents or my studies. And for some of you, that might seem like an odd thing to be afraid of. But for those of us who have spent our lives on the outside of places like this, which I have as someone who proudly and somewhat insensitively declared atheism to my grandparents when I was 12. Churches are scary. Being known is frightening. Being loved can feel suspicious. And being held accountable risks my time, my security, and my comfort, my cozy, cultured despair. But every single one of you is here because, even if just for today, you've said yes. You've said yes to life. You've said yes to love. And you've said yes to risk. So today I want to celebrate you for that amazing achievement. Like the kids that I work with, you've done it. You're at the top of the wall and you can see for ages. But I also want to urge all of us to go farther, because being in community also involves inviting each other to be adventurous, as Sharon Welch suggests. So I'll ask you another question. What's a risk you wish you could take? Maybe, like me, it's a community you wish you could step more fully into, or a commitment you wish to make to the cause of liberation. Maybe it's a new role or relationship or practice. Maybe it's something you've been meaning to say to a friend or a loved one, a boundary to set or help to ask for, or even just how much they mean to you or how much you miss them. Take a moment to think about it. You can close your eyes if you wish. Got it? Good. You can open your eyes. I have good news. The thing you wish you could do, you can do it. It might be hard. It might involve fear and failure and falling, but it's better to fall than to stay in the nest forever. And like a fledgling, you won't be there for very long. After all, we have wings. We are each other's wings. That's why we're here today. And if we can all commit to this, to leaving the nest, to taking risks, to being together, very soon it'll be time to fly. Please rise as you are willing and able, and join me in singing a hymn whose tune you might recognize, and whose words, I think, speak to this commitment. This is number 143, Not in Vain the Distance Beacons, number 143.
Now that our celebration is ending, I invite Reed back up to extinguish our chalice. And our closing words are spoken in unison, and again you'll find them printed in the order of service or appearing on your screen. Extinguishing this flame which has burned bright in our midst, we revere what has been kindled within each of us. Warmth in community, the light of truth, a perpetual spark of hope. So as we prepare to leave this place, made holy by our collective presence, and this time together sanctified through our mutual love, may we go in courage and with tenacity and fortitude. May we always seek to climb higher, to persevere, and to take risks. And if, or rather when, we slip, may we always have someone holding the rope to belay us down. Go in peace and be about peace in all you do. Amen, and blessed be.